Hello and welcome to Zerocarbonista. This is Series 6, the cow in the room. I'm Ian Collins, and this is your number one go-to environment-based podcast. If it's green, it is in. Dale, it's another busy week. You don't stop. Officially, you haven't actually sat down for 7 months, apparently. I read this on Twitter. You're that busy.
You have to be
But
careful.
it's interesting. We start with the Daily Mirror story, not with a Telegraph story.
Yeah, that's a change, isn't it? It's an unusual outlet for us, but they picked up our Breaking the Link report. We put out a new one recently.
Yeah.
It showed some scary numbers, like in 2023, the link cost the country £43 billion added to our energy bills. I mean, it's a shitload of money. Last year, it was a mere £5 billion, but by 2030, the forward price of gas will add to our energy bills £87 billion if we don't break the link. And this story has been picked up by other people as well. The Telegraph did run it, but they didn't take it from us. They took it from a bunch of consultants or something that have latched onto it and said, hey, we need to break this link. It's worth a couple of £1 billion a year. It's much more money than that. And we're days away now from publishing our Haynes manual on how to break the link. Because
can't wait for this.
Desnes been telling us it's hard to do, and that's why they want to wait it out until 2030, until there's not a lot of gas left on the system, which is a long while to wait. And I think it's a funny way to wean yourself off something or something like that. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, but it's all the green stuff that's making bills more expensive, Dale. Have you not read this?
I have.
Yeah, it's the green things, the green taxes, the green subsidies, the green freaking windmills, panels. That's what's doing it. I know that because I read it in the paper.
Yeah, because Reform and the Tories actually have been saying it. But anyway, I just want to finish this part. Our Haynes manual is coming out in a matter of a week, and it will be a blow-by-blow account. I mean, some people watching this podcast will remember the Haynes manual series. Whatever car or motorbike you had, there was a book for it, right?
Oh, and it was absolutely.
And it was a step-by-step, part-by-part, how to fix your wheels. So we're going to give that to Desnes.
Even would tell you how to get a girlfriend if you drove it the right way. Yeah.
I don't remember that chapter. I must have missed it.
Yeah, maybe that was a different publication.
Yeah. But on your other point, green energy putting bills up and stuff, it's a kind of it's a pernicious, kind of toxic approach that Farage and Badenoch are taking. But good news is a poll out this week said only 20% of the public are buying it.
I saw that.
Nearly 50% of people saying, nah, it's not that. It's them greedy oil company, energy company bosses.
I think
which is equally wrong.
Don't they? Yeah.
Well, it's equally wrong, but I'm happy if they...
Yeah, exactly. It's a better version of wrong, right?
It is, yes.
Talk about the Hay Festival, because you were there on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was fun. I haven't been there before. I've been to Hay. I think it was the first place I was evicted when I lived on the road from Hay Bluff. But I went to the festival.
They let you back.
Yeah. I'm respectable now. I get a police escort.
That's true.
Not that kind, the other kind, if you know what I mean. Anyway.
Back to the manual.
Yeah. And I did a session on stage in front of a lovely audience. I mean, it was just brilliant. Q&A at the end, my favourite part. But just talking about all kinds of stuff, really. Mostly stuff from my book. It's a literary festival, so, kind of expect that. Yeah. Good fun.
Scotland adopting the Ecocide law. For those who don't know, tell us more about this. What is Ecocide, and what have Scotland done that other places are not doing?
So there's a movement that began here in Stroud to write into law a crime of ecocide, and this crime is about doing harm to nature and to the environment, intentionally or accidentally, great harm that will endure for future generations and stuff like that. The EU have picked it up and are running with it. It looks like it will become EU law. A couple of smaller countries in the world already have made it so. And there's an international movement to make it global law. A Scottish MP has submitted it to Parliament in Scotland today, proposing that Scotland adopts the Ecocide law. And I was in the Herald, Scottish Herald, I think it was today, basically saying why I think that's a good idea. Yeah. And the thing I told them that they didn't write, and it's fine, they have limited space, is that actually it's an economic issue. And the CBI have made that clear for all of us. They put out a report 2 months ago that said, if we carry on with our current rate of nature decline, if we don't stop it, we'll lose 12% off of our GDP in the next 10 years. And
Well,
so the environment and the economy are completely tied together. And
yeah,
the CBI made this clear. So I said to the Scottish press, another reason, it's not just about protecting the environment, it's actually about protecting jobs, it's about the economy of
sure.
Scotland.
Yeah, that's big. On international matters, it's just worth, because you've posted a lot about your position on Israel and Gaza, and you've been consistent in that. But what was quite surprising this week, which I think is of interest, certainly to you try to raise awareness, is what a former Israeli leader said this week.
Yeah, I mean, it appears there's a lot of momentum building, at least in terms of words and opinions. It seems like people are coming out from everywhere now and saying, "Oh, this is wrong. We need to, stop this, have sanctions, that kind of stuff," which is
Yeah.
great news. But this guy, ex-prime minister of the country, he called Netanyahu and his government a gang of criminals. That's what he said
Wow.
they were, and he listed all of the things they're doing in Gaza, and essentially said it's genocide because everything he described fits that definition. I don't think he used the genocide word, but he talked about war crimes,
Sure.
gang of criminals, and had how wrong it was, which is quite a big deal.
Yeah, well, Netanyahu's not that popular in Israel. That's the funny thing. And if he seems to be the kind of immovable object in the
Mm,
story, really.
mm.
But
It's
he's
a bit like
surrounded by some pretty hardline hawks over there. But
mm.
that administration is pretty precarious. I think the next election will see a very different result.
He's a kind of, in a funny way, in a position that Trump was in before he won his second term.
Yeah.
Being president protects Trump from a whole bunch of legal jeopardy.
Yeah.
Netanyahu's been under investigation for fraud, I think it is, for a very long time.
Sure.
While he's president, they can't get him. And to be president, he's continuing the war.
Yeah. I was about to say let's move on to lighter matters, but this because I was going to mention Elon Musk, but only in the sense that EV sales are up, but Elon Musk's cars are down.
Yeah, you gotta love it.
What's happened? It's like he's almost a divisive character that some people don't like very much.
Yeah, it's like he's done bad things or
Yeah.
something, and his karma is coming to get him. This is karma spelled Carma for anybody that's familiar with the original karma, which starts with a K.
Is that right? I thought karma was always with a karma, with a
With a
K.
K, yeah, no, it is. Well, I'm trying to make a joke, but it's a
Oh, I see.
it's a written joke. It's a written joke, not an oral one. So I'm having to describe that. I say karma with a C.
I get it.
Okay. All right. He's getting karma. So EV sales are up nearly 30%, and Tesla sales are down
Yeah.
50, just over 50%, which is just quite incredible. And I think there's a quarter knocked off the share price and stuff like that. And I mean, I love it. People are voting with their wallets, which is something we all tend to do. And it makes the case for sanctions against Israel. We should all stop buying Israeli shit.
Is it fair to say, just to put my Elon Musk hat on for a second, that for so long he was kind of this dominant force and there was very little else around? Well, there was, but not of note, or certainly not with the same kind of profile. Now there is a much wider choice, absolutely massive choice. No motoring organization, manufacturer doesn't make electric vehicles now. So as a result of that, that's why his numbers are down rather than the fact that he's a massive twat.
Yeah, no, that's not the case. The
It's the
competition was
latter.
there. Yeah, the competition was there 12 months ago, and he
True.
was doing rather better. BYD of China have overtaken him in sales and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, this is stark, right?
Yeah.
Because sales are up 30%, right? The market is up 30% for electric cars,
Yeah.
and then he goes down 50%.
And he goes down, which is, that is clearly significant. I'm going to give you a headline here, Dale. See if you can come up with a story. You ready?
Yeah.
Wind Wars.
Yeah, you gotta love it. I'm not sure I love the term that much, but it probably is the best that you could come up with to describe what's happening. And is basically competition between big offshore wind farms for the wind. And what's happening is somebody has already built a whole series of big offshore wind farms, and
Yeah.
somebody else is coming along and building another one on the windward side. So catching the wind before it gets to the one that's already built. This has an effect. We
That's
know that from
extraordinary.
we know it from onshore studies, but the offshore windmills are so big, the effect can run for kilometers, and it's knocking 4 or 5% off annual revenue. But when you've
Sure.
got billions invested in this big stuff and you're losing 4 or 5% from your projections, it comes to a lot of money. So there's a lot of work being done at the moment to build a model
Yeah.
for wind wake effects so that future planning applications can take that into account. And there are calls for financial compensation from the new wind farm to the
Yeah.
old one for it's not stolen wind, but
Sure.
it's they've jumped in front. It's like I
Yeah,
can't think.
they're capturing the wind and nicking the wind.
Yeah, that's right. It's
Wind
like jumping the
thieves.
queue.
Well,
It's
that's
like
it. They're
jumping the
jumping
queue
the
for the
queue.
wind.
That's exactly
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
I think you'll find there's a queue for this wind. Get to the back. None of
yeah.
that. They're just getting
That's right.
right to the front
That's
with
right.
their
Build
big
behind me.
windy
That's
net.
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, behind me. Get in front of me, not behind me. Which way round is it? That's where the confusion sets in.
It's like
And of
it's like
course, yeah,
yeah.
the wind
Go on,
changes
anyway.
direction, of course, as well.
But there's a main direction. It's from the southwest, and it's
Ah,
the most frequent direction, and they're jumping in front southwest wise, and that's the problem. They could be over to
always
the
the
you know
pesky southwest, isn't it?
always the southwest.
There's always going to be controversy with the southwest.
Oh, it says here it can run to 37 miles. This impact.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Did I sound too shocked at that?
No, 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 I liked it. You're
That
normally
is.
just about, yeah, whatever.
Well, sticking with how we energize the planet, uh, we've all heard of petrostates, but now people are talking about electrostates. It's a phrase I've never heard before. It kind of speaks for itself. But where is there one?
Yeah, I never heard of it before either. And it makes perfect sense because we've got to electrify everything. Um, China, fancy that. China are looking set to become the world's first electrostate. So 30% of all of the energy used in China, you have to add oil and gas and
Yeah.
everything into that mix. 30% of all their energy is from electricity. For Europe and the US, it's 22%. So they're already streets ahead of us in terms of electrification.
Hmm.
And well, I say they're already the world's first electrostate, but they aren't obviously there yet in terms of completing the job.
But they're in that. I mean, they're certainly doing more collectively than anywhere else on the planet, right? I mean, I know
Yeah.
the argument that always comes in your direction is, yeah, but what about China? But what about
Yeah.
China? But what about China?
Yeah.
But of course, there's more than one game going on here in China, and the electro state aim is clearly the big one.
Yeah, and somebody from my audience in Hey on Why this week posed that kind of fairly normal question, like what do we do to encourage China to do the right thing and kind of follow us? And I said, actually, what we should be worried about, I explained all the things that China is doing. I said, what we should really be worried about is how are we going to keep up with China because they're way ahead of us.
Yeah. Here's a question from Mark Marlowe on Facebook. Hi, Dale. As a vegan football fan, it pisses me off that I have to use bookmakers who support horse and dog racing. How about creating a bookies that doesn't? I can probably pledge £100,000. Wow, it's a serious player.
Jesus.
This is like a kind of Dragon's Den moment here, Dale.
Yeah. There's a problem though. There's a problem for us, for me and for the club, in that we don't support gambling. So we won't take
Oh,
gambling sponsorship, and it does enormous social harm. Gambling,
yeah,
and I know that it's a bit of fun for some people, but for people for whom it stops being fun, I mean, it causes death, suicides and stuff like that, depressions, mental health problems, breaks up families.
yeah.
I mean, it's a terrible thing. So we work with an not anti, well, they are, yeah, an anti-gambling charity instead, and I couldn't be part of an alternative bookies that didn't use horse and dog racing.
Fair point. Mark mentioned he
Yeah.
was a vegan, and there's lots of institutions where there is a bit of a debate around whether universities, places like that, should have more vegan food. Some even arguing that meat should be completely off the agenda and plant-based diets are clearly better. And if you want to take it to its extreme, better for your brain and therefore better for learning, etc. And I know that certainly the guidance that schools in England used to have, which I didn't realise until I was reading about this, was that you have to have meat 3 times a week. So it's actually compulsory to have meat. But that, I think, is changing.
Well, we talked about this on this podcast a few times. I think starting at the last Labour conference, we went public and said this ought to change. And somebody accused me, what do they accuse me of on this podcast, of taking meat from children?
Yeah,
that's what it was. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Somebody on X-Rated Corner for sure. We joked about it. But look, we've been campaigning against this law that obliges schools to feed meat and dairy products to kids 3 times a week. Somebody came out with a report this week. A charity came out with a report, and they said basically kids are eating, I don't know, nearly 30% more meat products than adults, and that 80% of the meat they're being fed in schools is processed or red meat. Processed is our old friend like ham and stuff like that. Grade 1 carcinogen. Grade 1 carcinogen according to the World Health Organization, and red meat is grade 2. They're both identified as carcinogenic, and currently the government obliges schools to feed this carcinogenic stuff, this toxic stuff, to our kids 3 times a week. It doesn't make any sense. The law came in under Cameron. Nobody knows why. I haven't been able to find anybody that knows why he brought this in, whether there were brown envelopes between him and Big Food or the NFU, or he just got lobbied. I mean, who knows? But why, 10 years ago, would you pop up with a law like this when the science was already clear?
As my old nan would have said, bit weird that.
Bit weird.
Just
like his relationship, like his relationship with pigs' heads, allegedly.
Even weirder. Yeah, we should say that this is merely an anecdotal reference you were making there, rather than any genuine accusation of brown envelopes.
Did you say brown envelopes? Yeah, so I thought it was a genital accusation. I'm trying to hear. We've got technical issues today.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe there is a crossover there. Farazio.
But you're right. It looks like it's about to change. The government have said, look, it's under review. I mean, they're listening. I think it'll change.
Here's one from Martin Peake on email. He says, I'm interested in getting solar panels for our house, but there are floods of companies offering it. How can I find a reputable company? Because people before wouldn't really have, you'd think, oh, I'll just buy some solar panels. You wouldn't think, is there an Apple of the solar panel world? And then there's a kind of Lidl of the solar panel world. And then there's one that's made out of paper mache or something. You don't, how do you know whether you're buying good panels or crap panels?
It's a tough one.
I think we should ask the panel.
Ask the panel. Right? Yeah, very good. Very good. I think, I was going to say check they're made in China, but 8 out of 10 of them are, so that won't help you. But they do make good shit. I think right now, most electricians are offering solar installs. It's become part of what they do. They'll do heat pump solar panels as well as, I don't know, light switches and cabling and stuff like that. And I think really it's a case of just finding, like finding a good builder. I mean, easier than it sounds, but just find a good company that also does solar panels and,
Fair point. Shop around, do some research, as they always say.
Yeah, we're good like that. I mean, look at us. We're like consumer advising experts now.
This is like an episode of Watchdog.
That fella Martin Lewis. Is it Martin Lewis? He'd be envious. He'd be like, oh no, they're stealing my dinner.
100%. Love Lewis.
The Mirror quoted him actually as being a supporter of breaking the link, and we put up a social media post saying, yeah, he's with us. And then we took it down because he said, no, you can't say that.
Shall we have a look at X-Rated Corner, Dale?
I would like to, actually, because I'm currently bored with the news.
These are people who aren't necessarily supporters of Dale or his cause. Al of the North on Instagram, who was responding to a comment that Farage doesn't care for the NHS any more than the Tories, says the NHS is a scam, just like Dale Vince. It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
That's so funny. The NHS is a scam. In what way and in what
How
world?
is the NHS a scam? Well, you might say it could be better. You might say there's areas it needs more funding. I've never heard anybody call it a scam.
No.
In fact, I don't even think Nigel Farage calls it a scam. That's how non-scammy it is.
I think this is a clickbait question designed just to be aired. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mr. T on X.
And we fell for it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, we just went there. Mr. T on X referenced a post on a Mirror article to fix utterly mad energy markets. Says, luckily, only the far left still read the Daily Bog Roll these days. There's no slights at you there, Dale.
No, not at all.
I don't know if the far left choose the Daily Mirror.
No, that'd be the Morning Star, wouldn't it? Or maybe
Morning
the Tribune.
Star. I get it every afternoon.
Dude, that's
Kind
a
of
bit
goes
late.
against the spirit, really, but
That's...
never been told off yet. And Kev May on Facebook, again referenced the energy market, says, this guy talks sense, maybe not to his barber, but in most other situations. Now, here we have, a double thing here, because the guy's giving with one hand and then taking away with the other. He's gone straight for something you've never heard before. He's gone straight for the haircut one.
Yeah, never heard it before, have we? This one's classic X-rated corner. Actually, because he's not the first person to say, I like this, but I don't like that.
Yeah.
Right. I'll take it, right? I'm talking sense. I'm much more interested that I talk sense rather than my hair looks good and I talk shit.
I'm just trying to work that out. Hang on. So, shit. If you had shit hair, you're all right with that as long as you talk sense.
Yeah, I'm taking that compliment. I don't care about the other one.
Yeah,
if it was the other way around and he said, you talk shit, but I like your hair, I'll be like, I'm failing.
Here's the thing. You've got loads of hair.
Yeah.
So there's never been... Well, so what I'm saying to that, because that's always the thing, isn't it? When you get onto social media, all right, Baldy, no one can do that.
They just don't like the way it's cut. Hey-ho.
Yeah, but I mean, the idea that I would ever form any opinion to the point I had to write it down and send it to people about another person's freaking haircut. I mean, shoot me in the feet if that happens. Dale, we are done.
No, we're not.
We are.
No, we're not.
You're right. Yeah, we kind of saved this story for the end because it was really good. So good that we nearly forgot to do it, or I did. So this is the newly elected mayor of Hull and East Yorkshire, Luke Campbell, who could be a closet Dale Vince supporter.
He's a closet something. I don't know what, but I just love what he's come out and said. Is like his whole party is against net zero. I mean, that's the big thing right now. And he's just got elected as a reform mayor. And he says, no, that green economy stuff is creating jobs and the economy. So I'm for it. And he's applied to do something with DESNZ for some huge sum of money funding in his area. And it's straight after the election. I mean, it's days after the election. I mean, you've got to love it.
I mean, that is extraordinary. I would imagine that there's a meeting been held somewhere at HQ where they've gone, who the hell is this guy?
And actually, they realise there's no gatekeeper in reform. I think he's a candidate for right wing nut of the week, actually.
Well, is he a right wing nut or is he a...
Yeah. He's on the right wing. He's obviously a bit of a nut.
But he supports
green energy.
Of course.
Yeah. It's an unusual right wing nut.
Yeah, it's a right wing nut with a twist.
It's like our enemy's enemy is our friend today.
Yeah. I wonder what his hair looks like.
Yeah. I wonder if that makes sense. What he says makes sense.
There you go. We don't care about his hair, of course, as long as what he says makes sense.
Yes.
Love it. Dale, we're speaking a week.
I can't wait.
Don't forget, of course, this podcast lands every Friday morning at 8 a.m. and tell every single person you know. Email them, text them, message them the link as well. Plus, of course, you can follow Dale on social media, which is twitter.com or x.com/DaleVince, facebook.com/DaleVince, and on the TikTok too.